morning, everyone. Please join me in singing our welcoming song, Welcome Here. Wherever you're going to, wherever you're coming from, you are welcome here. You are welcome here. Wherever you're going to, wherever you're coming from, you are welcome here. 'Cause it's a house of love, a house of hope and dreams. It's a house of love, and you are welcome here. 'Cause it's a house of love, a house of hope and dreams. It's a house of love, and you are welcome here. Now we'll sing it again in Spanish. Bienvenido aquí, yo quiero que vayas tú, yo quiero que vengas hoy. Bienvenido aquí, bienvenido aquí, yo quiero que vayas tú, yo quiero que vengas hoy. Bienvenido aquí a este lugar de amor, de sueños e ilusión, este lugar de amor. Bienvenido aquí, sea este lugar de amor, de sueños e ilusión, este lugar de amor. Bienvenido aquí.
Good morning, Chalice. And welcome to Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a community of diverse beliefs and experiences, nurturing the liberal religious spirit and united by our desire to grow in love and in service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you're welcome here. Whether you gather with us every Sunday, only occasionally, or if you're here for the first time, you're especially welcome. I'm Alice Dodd, your worship associate. Our service is led by our very own rested and restored minister, Reverend Sharon Wylie. Our worship musician is Justin Gray, and our song leader is Tom Strum. Our tech team is Hope Campbell and Sarah Komnick. Our greeters are Amaki Aikapa and Marshall Fogel. Reverend Wylie and I have taken a rapid COVID test this morning, so you'll see us leading the worship with our naked faces.
Also Tom.
And Tom too, yes. Welcome to our Sunday worship service. Welcome to those of you here in the chapel and to those watching live using Zoom. Here in the chapel, you'll notice the windows are open to ensure good air circulation in the room. Plus, we have 4 air purifiers. But if you're uncomfortable for any reason and would prefer to listen outside in the chapel, you'll hear the service going on out there too.
Are the windows open? Okay, this one's not. Okay, sorry.
If you're using Zoom, notice that your Zoom menu is in the chat button. Feel free to use it, and just be sure that when you post, you've opened the blue menu there to select everyone, so that the folks on Zoom may also see what's being shared. I especially want to welcome those of you who are newcomers with Chalice this morning. And toward the end of the service, there'll be a link in the online chat box for adding your name to our email list. In-person newcomers have already provided your email when you signed in. Our weekly email is the best way to get information about the many groups and activities that we offer here at Chalice. And now let's take a breath together.
A land acknowledgement is an honest and historically accurate way to recognize the traditional First Nations of a place. It commemorates Indigenous peoples' principal kinship to the land and the fact that they have not been and cannot be erased from their collective First Mother, the land. It is a starting place to change how the land is seen and talked about, according to Wanda Nannybush of the Anishinaabe Nation in Ontario. For non-Indigenous communities, a land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honor for the Indigenous people of the land on which we work and live. It is a way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth. It is a stepping stone to honoring broken treaty relationships. It is an act of reconciliation. Land acknowledgements are not about placing blame, nor are they intended to restore white comfort. They are prayerful, they are personal, with carefully chosen and accurate language. In honoring Indigenous peoples, we strive to learn the pronunciation of their names. Land acknowledgements recognize how systemic and institutional systems of power have oppressed Indigenous people, and how that oppression has historically influenced the way non-Indigenous peoples perceive and interact with them, in the past as well as in the present. And so, I offer this land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that I live, work, and raise my family on stolen land, the ancestral homeland of the Piamkouicham and the Kumeyaay nations, a people who have been living, working, and raising families on this land of their ancestors for countless generations. People who have an enduring connection to this land that can never be erased. People for whom their deep relationship with this land of their ancestors is inseparable from who they are. People who consider this land and everything around them to be part of their enduring family.
And now we light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And I invite Susan Chamberlain forward to light our chalice this morning. Our chalice lighting words come from Bruce Southworth. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith in communion of heart and soul. Our call to worship comes from Melanie Davis. May daydreaming never cease for those who know the world to be a troubled place, but dare to work toward that brighter hope, that better day. This is a precious place that shelters those who love and strive and share. Its blessing is in lives that meet within, in living, learning, and caring here. Come, let us worship together. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy. Please be seated.
Our Sunday worship is the shared spiritual practice of our community, and we tend to the congregation during this time by sharing and honoring our joys and sorrows. Here in the chapel, you're welcome to write your joy or sorrow on a candle card, which will be collected from you. Online, please write your joy or sorrow, including your name, and press enter to send it into the chat. These joys and sorrows will be spoken out loud. Then they'll remove the part of the service from the recording that goes on our YouTube channel. So no one will be able to publicly view this sharing online. We'll have a few minutes of music so you can write down what you would like to share. Reverend Sharon writes, please keep my husband's family in your prayers. My father-in-law is moving into a memory care facility tomorrow. June Bailey writes, today is my 6-year anniversary of attending services here at Chalice. Congratulations, and may you attend for many, many more. Richard Quartz, his joy. My optimism is lifted. I wonder why. Democracy was on the ballot and democracy prevailed. Woo-hoo. And Amaki, yes, Amaki had the same song. You're reading from the same hymnal. Democracy lives, and 2 exclamation marks. 1 isn't enough. And let's see. Marilyn and I are thankful that our nation has enough sanity to have at least saved the Senate and limited the red tsunami in the House. And Josie writes that. Today is my 80th birthday, and that's Jean M. Ah, okay. And joy that our grandnephew Koa celebrated his first birthday in Tucson yesterday with all 4 great-grandmothers in attendance. And that's from Deb Kuhn. And I think that is everything. and we light a final candle for all the joys and sorrows that go unshared and unspoken this morning. We hold these in the love and support of this community. Here in the silence, may our hearts be open, open to feeling human pain and sorrow, open to healing, mending the tomorrow, moved by this silence here.
When Sadness is at Your Door, written and illustrated by Ava Eland. Sometimes sadness arrives unexpectedly. It follows you around and sits so close to you, you can hardly breathe. You can try to hide it, but it feels like you've become sadness yourself. Try not to be afraid of sadness. Give it a name. Listen to it. Ask it where it comes from and what it needs. If you don't understand each other, just sit together and be quiet for a while. Find something that you both enjoy, like drawing, like listening to music or drinking hot chocolate. Maybe sadness doesn't like to stay inside. Try letting it out sometimes. Go for a walk through the trees. You can listen to their sounds together. Maybe all it wants to know is that it is welcome. And to sleep, knowing it is not alone. When you wake up, it might be gone. Don't worry. Today is a new day. So this morning, I want to share with you one of the most exciting things for me from sabbatical. So this is about a type of therapy. I learned about it not by working with a therapist, but by working with a spiritual director. As part of my sabbatical time, I met with a spiritual director every 2 weeks for spiritual reflection and guidance. Early in my sabbatical, I would talk with my spiritual director about the discomfort I felt when I wasn't working. Some of you may recognize that feeling. I told her, even though I know I'm tired and I need this rest, there's still a voice in my head that says it's lazy to sit around doing nothing. And I went on to tell her, I don't know where that voice comes from. Maybe it's the voice of my mom. Sorry, Mom. But my spiritual director spoke up. No, she said. All the voices and messages we hear in our head are our own voices. Now, this may not seem like a radical idea, but I found it astonishing. I have always felt comfortable attributing a certain amount of my thoughts or feelings as coming from outside myself, coming from the way I was raised, or being part of Generation X, or teachings of the dominant culture, and so on. The idea that it was all me felt new and interesting, and so I asked to learn more. What she talked with me about, and what I went on to read about, and what I'm currently taking an online class in, is called internal family systems therapy. But I'm not a therapist, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of the teachings and ideas from this way of understanding the mind. But I don't feel like I'm going to be telling you a lot about the therapeutic practices. So let's call this internal family systems thinking. IFS thinking. So there are a lot of different types of therapy. If you've ever looked at a therapist directory online, you can often filter the therapists by types of therapy: psychoanalytic, hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and so on. So there are dozens and perhaps hundreds of different types of therapy. IFS therapy is what's called an evidence-based therapy, meaning it has been shown to be effective in clinical studies, and it's been around for about 40 years. I find its model for understanding the mind to be very synchronous with many of our Unitarian Universalist beliefs, and I'll get to that. But first, in IFS, the framework for understanding the mind is that the mind is made up of the self and parts. We already use this language of parts organically, and I'm hoping after today, you'll start to hear it, you'll start to notice it. So remember, I said there was a voice in my head telling me I was lazy, a judgy voice that says I'm lazy when I'm not working. That judgy voice is one of my parts. So if you've ever said something like, part of me is really looking forward to going to the party, but part of me would love to stay home and read a book. You have an outgoing part that likes to be around people, and you have a part that prefers being alone. And these parts are sometimes in conflict with each other. And it's through this kind of ordinary language that we already use. This is exactly how this theory of the mind was developed. And this type of therapy was from a therapist who heard his patients, clients talking this way. So we have these parts, and all our parts are different from each other. So it's not like there's a list of parts and I would say, here's the parts we all have. That's not it. You will naturally know your own parts the best, just as I know mine. And even when we have some similarities, what your part looks like and sounds like in there is going to be different from mine. It is likely that we have some similar parts. Many people have an inner critic, possibly multiple inner critics. We have perfectionist parts, worried parts. Our story today was about having a sad part of ourselves show up. That story was a beautiful illustration that we don't have to think of everything as coming from inside, and we can, be friendly towards a part we're getting to know and companion it while we learn about it. Our parts have their own agendas, their own work they're trying to accomplish, and sometimes they work well with each other, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes we have conflicting parts, and we recognize when that happens because we end up feeling stuck or confused or like we aren't sure what to do. So I was experiencing a lot of that early in my sabbatical. Like I had multiple parts that were had opinions about what it's like to be not working. And then we all have a self, that self with a capital S. And the self in each of us has these 8 qualities: calm, compassionate, confident, connected, courageous, creative, curious, and having clarity. That all by itself is a pretty radical statement, I think. We each have a self in us that is calm, compassionate, confident, connected, courageous, creative, curious, and has clarity. You might know people who don't seem to have these qualities at all, or don't seem able to access these qualities easily. Sometimes people come to this therapy not believing that there is a part of themselves with these qualities. It is possible to live our lives very disconnected from this self. And I think there are people who live very disconnected from this self, and that it's a very painful way to live. But most of us, hopefully, are able to access that self at least some of the time. And as we go about our day, our self and our parts are working together like a family system, an internal family system, working a way to do the things we need to do to get through the day and live our lives. Get up, eat breakfast, get dressed, all of the things. So in an optimal system, I'll get to this later, but IFS doesn't use the language of brokenness or ill or needing healing. So I love that about it. And so, listen to these word choices. In an optimal system, the self is the leader of the system. Remember, all of our parts have their own agendas and concerns. We might have an organizer part that wants everything to be orderly, and our judgy parts has lots of opinions about the right and wrong way of doing things. We might have a perfectionist part who can't bear it if certain things aren't done in a certain way. These parts on their own can't always figure out how to work together. And so our internal family system works best when it is led by the self that is calm, compassionate, confident, connected, courageous, creative, curious, and has clarity. So I have a great example for you of what this might look like. So we have a commercial. I mean, this isn't related to IFS, except that it's the perfect illustration of IFS. So this is a commercial from a real estate app, and it accidentally illustrates the internal family system of the self and the parts really well. So we'll watch it.
Okay, listen up. Selling our place, buying this place. Thoughts. Negative me. No. Shouldn't have started with you. Spontaneous me. Already ordering drapes. Paranoid me. Why are you asking me? Antisocial me! Wow, I'm rude. Lazy me? Lazy me! We gotta sell our place, sort out finances. Stressed me. Wow, okay. Does anybody have anything helpful me?
Hi, we don't need to stress about lining it all up. Zillow can help with that.
And that's why you're my favorite me.
I thought I was your favorite me.
Oh, you totally are, gullible me. 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 Me.
I think the name of the company behind her is Susan's Co. That was Susan. So you can see that someone was running that meeting, right? Calling on all the different parts for their input. And IFS, the part that runs the meeting, is hopefully the self. Now, I say hopefully the self is leading the system, but we know that that's not always true, right? Even for those of us who are in touch with that part of ourselves, I doubt that any of us feels that our self, with all of those lovely characteristics, is always the part that's running things. Sometimes angry me jumps up and takes over the meeting of parts. Or worried me. A lot of us were in touch with our worried parts this week, weren't we? Many of us didn't feel calm, confident, and curious this week. Or sometimes the part of me that thinks it's a good idea to watch hours and hours of television takes over, and it's not myself with its clarity that's running things. So there are lots of different metaphors that get used to describe the internal family system, and there's not a right one, a wrong one, or a perfect one. We just saw this system operating as like a meeting in a conference room. Another image that gets used sometimes is a group of people on a bus with the self driving the bus, or sometimes another part shoves the self aside and takes over driving. I'm coming to like the image of an orchestra with a conductor. With the conductor leading things, the self, the musicians work together to create beautiful music. Sometimes some instruments are louder as the music rises and falls. Not all instruments play all of the time in an orchestra, right? We don't need all of our parts working away all of the time. So imagine then how things can go wrong. What if some instrumentalists insist on playing louder, ignoring the conductor, or some instrumentalists refuse to play their part when it's time? Imagine someone shoving the conductor aside and trying to lead the orchestra themselves, but that person, that musician, doesn't know how to be a conductor. All they know is how to play their own instrument. This is what it's like when our parts try to lead themselves, when they ignore the self or don't trust the self. It can be a little chaotic, and I suspect that most of us have had times in our lives when our inner world felt chaotic. We've had times when we've done something or said something without fully understanding why we did or said that thing. Isn't that what meditation is about? Quieting the cacophony of our parts and maybe listening deeply for the voice of the self, the calm, compassionate, connected self. So now here's one of the most important things to understand about your parts, and this is a central tenet of IFS thinking. There's a whole book with this title: There Are No Bad Parts. So this might feel counterintuitive at first. Most of us have things we would change about ourselves if we could. And if someone is shoving aside the conductor of the orchestra and trying to lead, that doesn't sound good. But this is, to me, is why the orchestra image works well, because we don't really think that one musician is evil or wants to hurt everyone else. That part just wants to make beautiful music. And it thinks that their instrument is the most important one. So that part thinks it's doing the right thing by taking over and playing louder than everyone else. This is true for even very troubling behaviors like addiction. Addiction behaviors, numbing behaviors, these are things we do to avoid facing hurt, facing hard decisions, avoid facing painful memories, avoid debilitating doubts and insecurities. The part of us that is encouraging that behavior, whatever it is, drinking, substance use, risky activities, playing games all day, watching TV all day, that part is trying to be helpful in keeping you from feeling pain or discomfort. So it wants to distract you with these other activities. But just like the tuba player shoving aside the conductor, good intentions don't necessarily produce good outcomes. So another word that's used for parts is protectors. Our parts are trying to protect us from pain and discomfort and hardship. The work that's done in therapy is to get to know your parts and then to learn what it is they're trying to protect you from. It is often painful memories that originate from childhood experiences or other kinds of traumatic experiences. This is considered by many people to be a very good therapy for addressing trauma and traumatic experiences. So IFS does not use the language that suggests we are broken or ill in any way. When we talk about parts, about protectors that aren't functioning optimally, we talk about them having developed an extreme or oppressive belief, and we talk about them being burdened. So the therapeutic work is to unburden the protector. So for example, I mentioned having a judgy part. A judge part can be helpful in living daily life, helping to evaluate decisions and activities. What should we do? What's a good use of our time? But mine had become a little extreme, judging me for resting even when I needed rest. So we consider that an extreme belief, an oppressive belief. When I was getting to know that part, and I asked it what it was afraid would happen if it didn't do its job, so I was trying to get to know it. The answer was, this is what the judge thought, was that there would be chaos if it didn't do its job. My judging part really felt that its work was important, like the most important work of the whole system. So I did the therapeutic work with that part, which is complicated and not something we're going to cover here. But I will say that part of that work is helping the part, the protector, learn to trust the self as the leader of the system, and to trust that the self can do some of the work that the part used to do. So, the self is a pretty good evaluator of what's a good use of time as well. So we approach our parts with love, compassion, and gratitude, always, even when their behavior is behavior we hope to change. And that helps the part lay down its burden, so it can begin to function in a way that's more harmonious with the rest of the system, the rest of the orchestra. So if I judged my judging part, that wouldn't be the self, because the self doesn't judge. So if I were judging my judging part, that would be another part. It gets like that really fast. There's a part judging my judging part. Okay, because here's the thing, this is why this is my first sermon coming back from sabbatical. Our parts are exhausted. All of our parts are exhausted. They teach this in IFS therapy even before the pandemic, that people's parts get exhausted. And so post-pandemic, I feel like that's our situation. The pandemic has exhausted us in a way that most of us have never experienced before, and that the regular things we do to rest and recuperate will not be enough. I can tell you that after a month of sabbatical, I did not feel significantly different than the first day of sabbatical. And I've heard this from other ministers who have been fortunate enough to take substantial time off. I had to learn how to unburden my parts and how to rest my parts. So there are IFS trained therapists you can work with, but there's also permission to do IFS work on your own. And there are books to support you in doing this. I'm happy to make recommendations if you are interested in learning more. But these are the ideas in IFS that seem important to me for us as Unitarian Universalists. That we are inherently whole, not broken. That we are our own sources of transformation. That love, compassion, and gratitude are gateways to unburdening pain and suffering. That spiritual practices can be understood as working to help quiet the chatter of our parts and to strengthen our sense of self. Spiritual practices help parts know and trust the self. And that this framework might help us better understand the pain and suffering of people we know or see in the world who have lost touch with their self. It's my most fervent hope that some of these ideas may be helpful to you in some way as you make sense of your own life and your own ways of being in the world. May it be so. You're invited to rise in body or spirit to join in singing.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reverses the past but trusts the dawning future more, and binds the soul in search of truth, adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. Please be seated.
Our offering words are from Victoria Weinstein. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is a common goal of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. Please text your donation to Chalice. If you haven't texted a donation before, know that once you've texted the amount, you'll get a reply with a link to follow to enter your credit card information. But if you've already entered this information previously when you've donated, you won't need to enter it again. If your donation is meant to be part of your pledge payment, please be sure to indicate pledge after the dollar amount. And if your donation is part of your donation for Power the Future campaign, please indicate Power the Future after the desired dollar amount. Please give generously. So the phone number for the text donations will be on the screen in a moment. Please join in dedicating our offering with words of affirmation. With love at the center, the mission of this congregation is to inspire, connect, and act.
So will you join me in the spirit of prayer? The words come from the Reverend Beth Dana. God of many names, mystery beyond all our naming, lift us up above the divisions, move us beyond inaction, and heal us that we may know our wholeness within and together. As we emerge from this week's election, a time of regrouping, of celebration and despair, let us continue on. May the victories energize the work ahead, and may there be space for disappointment. And then may the spirit of inspiration found in coming together stoke the fires of commitment within us. Commitment to our neighbors, to justice, to creating a better world, propelling us forward to do the shared work ahead. That our voices, that all voices may be heard, and that we may find continued ways to love and to serve. May our relationships with those whose views we share, as well as those with whom we disagree, be filled with the spirit of compassion, moving us beyond the walls of our knowing, beyond the walls of sameness toward each other's humanity. Amen. You're invited again to rise in body or spirit.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child, and we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together, and with the grace of age we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us full with pain and grief. But as we live so shall we die. And when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. Seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer. Please be seated.
Before we close this service, I'd like to remind newcomers online to use the link in the chat box to add your name to our email list. As we extinguish our chalice, our closing words come from Maureen Killeran. Listen to the blessing of music. May we know this ending as more than a time of goodbye. May the warmth of this community sustain our hearts and encourage our minds as we engage the blessings of life's challenges and joys. Our service has ended, but your service has just begun. Go in peace and go in love. As we draw our time together to a close, let's join in singing The Well and then return to your seats for an announcement.
We drink from the well together, cool, cool water that quenches my thirst. A thirst for justice, a thirst for joy, a thirst for a love that we're all a part of. We drink from the well. We drink from the well together. Hand in hand we are standing as one, standing for justice, standing for joy, stand for a love that we're all a part of. We drink from the well. Open the doors to the world outside, spirits renewed from within. Look for the dream in each other's eyes, a spark where a new world begins. We drink from the well together, heart to heart we are dancing as one, dancing for justice, dancing for joy, dance for a love that we're all a part of. We drink from the well, spirits renewed, we drink from the well, stand hand in hand, we drink from the well, dancing for joy, I feel my heart swell. We
I'm gonna, Tech Deck, is it okay if I make an announcement first? Is that okay? Oh, did I get a thumbs up? I sent out an email last Wednesday afternoon. Next week is our, what would traditionally, it is our chalice soup service. And we, in pre-pandemic times, we actually had soup that day. And I'm wondering if we have enough volunteers to make that happen. And, you know, I just sent out an email about that on Wednesday. So a few people have signed up. I'll send it again today, but I wanted to bring it to people's attention since it's kind of short notice. And it's okay if we don't have enough volunteers to make that happen. I just mentioned we're all exhausted, and that's why we ask the question, do we care enough to put this on? But a few people have signed up, so I thought I'd send it again. So I just wanted to alert you to look for that in your email.
Thank you. For the online folks, remember that the coffee hour is now in the same Zoom room as the service. So if you'd like to chat with people, just stay tuned. This information is for our in-person congregants. We hope you'll enjoy the social hour on the courtyard where masks are optional. Or you could take your refreshment to the Blue Room and have a visit with our online congregants. And remember, children younger than 5 may not be vaccinated, so take care around them. And before you enjoy the coffee and refreshments on the courtyard, please remain seated for a few more minutes to hear about the solar component of the Power the Future campaign. Take it away.
Hey. All right. So, I'm Joel. I'm a person. And this is a bit of a tribute. Well, first off, it's for the Green Team, but it's a bit of a tribute to Barry Hacker, who inspired me as a true source of poetic inspiration. So Barry, if you're listening, this is also for you. With season's greetings drawing near, we're all expecting the season of cheer. Either the warm glow of hearth and home, or the swish and shush of the squeeze slalom. Or hearken all, what's that I hear? It's Santa's sleigh and 8 reindeer. Only this time the sleigh rolls on wheels because there's no more snow and that's the deal. Metaphorically speaking, so please just chill. So what's a true UU to do? We all know the warming is true. There's a principle I tend to embrace with all UUs and the whole human race. Read it now because it's a fine place to start. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So what have I done to help us all out? Not much, I guess. I have my doubts. I started riding my bike a bit. I still use my car for a distant visit. I have some solar and electric car, non-gas appliances, but that's it so far. I've planted trees, but they're still just shrubs, and I often wonder, have I done enough? I'm not net zero, and I know that much. I live a carbon-heavy life. My past is catching up. As for electricity, SDG&E only provides 31% carbon-free. The rest is a mix of carbon-heavy energy. As we use that power here on campus, whether we celebrate Christmas, Festivus, or Krampus, I guess there's always more to do, and I think we can try again instead of feeling blue. We have some choices, and here they are. 1, we could simply wish upon a star, but something tells me that won't get far. 2, let's protest like never before. We'll paint it orange and scream no more and glue our butts onto the floor. Just stop oil, and while you're at it, war. Oh, or 3, but who are we telling them how to be if we haven't eliminated our own folly? Here we gather under electric video sound and lights, heating buildings during chilly nights. It's all coming from one source, SDG&E, of course. So by those means, this campus itself is only 31% carbon-free, and it's kind of hurting my holiday glee. But we have some friends with a big plan. It's the Green Team is here with a big kablam! Rhyming is tough, so if you want to know, there's a meeting now with all the info. Come and join us and be a part of that interdependent web and folks good of heart.
Well done, Joel. I'm Jeff, I'm another person, and we're gonna give you a few more details before you get free to social hour. Dean, if you don't mind projecting, or Hope, or whomever, that would be great. So you can see the details. Solar panels for Chalice. Joel just provided an excellent demonstration of what it is. Let's go to the next one. Why? Obviously, respect for the interdependent web, living our values here at Chalice, reducing our electricity cost, the foundation of our Green Sanctuary program to become a Chalice Green Sanctuary per the UUA. One thing that solar panels do is not only do we stop emitting greenhouse gases, but we also prepare for heat waves that are coming and having air conditioning provided in an affordable way, which would be a value to all of Escondido's residents. So we can, it's again, hard for us to model that if we're not doing it ourselves. So affordable AC for Escondido is crucial for climate change. And we had unanimous support from the congregation to do this as of 2020, which is extremely appreciated.
Good morning. My name is Victoria Tenbrink, and I'm pleased to be your coordinator for the Chalice Green Sanctuary team. And there's some other team members here, but in the interest of time, thank you everybody for your effort. We are proposing a PV system. We already have it. We got four bids. We picked the one that looked the best for Chalice. You can see the numbers. 32 panels will go on the back roof of the hub that faces pretty much south. It'll give us all the power we need, 12.48 kilowatts DC for you tech heads, that many kilowatts per year. Supplies our anticipated electric use, including into the future when it gets warmer and we also go to electric hot water. Virtually eliminates our electric bill, but there's a big caveat on that. Details, we're looking at $40,000. Installation expected about 2 months after the funds. That means turning on the power within 2 months of when we get the money. But we can't get the permit until we get the money. And if we don't have the permit, net metering 3.0 will bite us. How many of you have solar? Wow. How many of you have heard of or know anything about net metering? How many of you know that they just approved net metering 3.0? They did last week. They have not given us the numbers or the date. And what we need is a permit before that date, because 4 things are going to happen. 1, our connection fee is going to go up, one-time fee. 2, our monthly connection fee is going to go up every month for the next 12 years, I believe. 3, the rates are going to go up, and that's probably across the board. There's a 4th one. Oh, the payback on our excess generation is going to go down. So Chalice's payback is going to suffer. So if we had that money tomorrow, we could get the permit and beat that. But we don't have a date and we don't have those exact numbers. I'm just telling you. Next slide.
So where are we? We've got 2 matching grants, thankfully, from the Spirit Level Foundation. So every dollar you give is matched by $1 from the Spirit Level Foundation. We need to raise $20,000 for solar and $12,500 for the technology improvements that we need to have this hybrid environment, which is so successful for our congregation, so that people can join from home. And of the amount that we need to raise as a congregation, we're halfway there. So that's great. It's a great start. And now it's time to get the rest of the way there. So here's the follow-up details for how to donate to the campaign.
Anybody who has any questions about this or wants to listen to the answers to anybody else's questions are free to stay. Otherwise, enjoy your coffee. But we will stay here and answer questions. So anybody who wants, yes, go ahead. Well, here's the deal. We cannot sign a contract with the solar company until we have the money in hand. So pretty much as soon as Chalice notifies the people who are doing the negotiating with the solar company that we have the money in hand, we will sign a contract and they will apply for the permits the next day.
My question was, when was it too late to avoid the solar?
Oh, I'm sorry, that date has not been announced. It could be as soon as January 1st, it could be March, it could be June, we don't know. We also don't know the grandfathering rules. So we're counting on the fact that if we at least have the permits, we will be grandfathered, even though the system may not be operational.
What company are you using?
We're using Alltech Solar. They're a local company, and congregants have experience with them. We made a combination of ease of working with the company, the dollar number of the bid. They've given us 2 or 3 bids so far, and we're not asking for, we haven't been able to sign a contract, so we're not asking them for a new bid until we have money. Okay, thanks, Ralph. We interviewed 4 companies on site who inspected our system and did analysis and everything. And the board and the coordinating team were all part of that. And this all happened in February of this year. Thanks. I've heard good things about Stellar too. Go ahead, Bonnie. That is up to the campaign people, not up to us. Anything else?
Thanks for staying to listen.
Yeah, and